Hey everybody, it's Pete Carmasino with Chaikin Analytics. Thanks for joining for this week's halftime show here on StockCharts TV. Appreciate you watching and tuning in. Let's just talk about what's going on today. It is August 2nd, 2021, and what a day, what a start to August we've got here. All the indexes are up. We're looking at across the board, U.S. equities are higher in Monday morning trading. This is coming after the Dow, the S&P, and the NASDAQ really finished lower in last week's trading. What we're seeing here is utilities, financials are leading. Interesting. You've got tech and communication services among some of the laggards, and you do have treasuries firmer with some strength sort of in the belly of the curve there. So we do have the 10s now below 1.2%. Remember, bonds up, interest rates down. That's the way that works. So again, as I said, most sectors are higher. We've got utilities leading the market, though. It's kind of weird. Financials are outperforming again, with banks are being broadly higher, really despite the drop in yield. So we do have a lot of mixed signals. I've been calling that out in our daily note. But today we're going to talk about a few different things. We're going to look at the semiconductor index. It's one of the indexes I pointed out last week for our subscribers, and it was forming an inverse head and shoulders on a relationship chart, a ratio chart of the SMH over the SPY. And I'll show you that, how you can build that on StockCharts if you don't know how. And then I'll pull up the note that we looked at, and then I'm going to dive into 2 or 3 names that are heavily weighted in the SMH. We're going to go over their charts, and then we're going to look at some other names that are in the semiconductor industry that are setting up on the Chaikin charts as well. So let's dive right in. We'll take a look at these semiconductors and what's going on here today. Okay, I'm keeping the video on this week. I've got the SMH and the SPY here. This particular ratio chart is one of the charts that I pointed out in our note. I'll show you what that looks like too. But, you know, look, I'm not a CMT, but I've been charting for a very long time. And I noticed this breakout setting up, right? It actually did follow through, thankfully. But, you know, when we see these head and shoulders, these inverse head and shoulders, they do form, and it's sometimes hard to see. Now, a week or so ago, I didn't pick up on it until we saw these 2 areas, which almost formed a double bottom. And then really you start to look at, when you draw this sort of wedge and you see this formation, it kind of popped out at me, and I noticed it. So I notated it in our note titled the Fed's no news is good news policy, which is kind of news. There was no new news, I should say. But here's what we did. We looked at the S&P, the SMH versus the S&P. We were calling this out. I looked at, you know, obviously there's been a lot of rotation back and forth in the markets, but the semiconductors are definitely one of the leading areas that we like to see break out, and maybe the market's going to follow. We're seeing that today. Again, all indexes are higher. But when I was looking at this last week, right around the ratio level, you can see, you know, on this particular note, that it was just forming and just kind of starting there, right? Now, if I go back to the chart today, you can see where it basically followed through, and we'd love to see it get above this level, where, you know, that would potentially create a breakout. But what's happening inside of this ETF is more important than maybe what's happening to this ratio. But again, when you see this ratio breaking out, you can start to say to yourself, there could be an opportunity here, and let's start looking at some of the names in there. And so, as I pointed out, this could be a bullish sign on a breakout, and here we've got it. It's the beginning of a bullish formation. As we know, a head and shoulders is a pattern that you know, sometimes can signal the end of a trend, whether it's the regular head and shoulders on the top end or the inverse sort of on the downtrend. And so you've got that, and it was in place. So let's pop over. I'm going to move to a different chart here, my halftime chart from today. And I'm going to start, just pull up the SMH and look at it as its own chart. And, you know, not quite that head and shoulders, but more of a rising setup here in this particular ETF. And you can see where it's been and what it's been doing for the whole year. It hasn't really adhered to that 55-day EMA that I use. It's been sort of back and forth over it, but it finally has resolved to the upside. And I think that's important. I think that's what we want to see in these leading sectors. So let's look at some of the names that are heavily weighted. So if I look at TSM, if I pull up TSM, this is pretty flat and sideways. Now, if I get over to the Chaikin power gauge, I've got a neutral plus. Remember what I talked about last week. This neutral plus means that it's a bullish fundamental name that's under its long-term trend, okay? And really sideways. I mean, obviously one of the biggest fabrication facilities in the world, if not the biggest, but it's been under some pressure. The RSI 14 has kind of been sideways. You see sort of the MACD is just starting to resolve itself to the upside. If I scroll out a little bit, you can see that a little bit better. But the bigger trend here has really been, I mean, some might call this a bullish flag. It's got a bit of a downtrend to it. But again, this makes up 14% of the SMH. It's a big weighting in that particular name. So the next one on the list that I have here is NVIDIA, which has been a crowd favorite and a favorite here, Chaikin. This does have a bullish signal and not necessarily underperforming. I mean, it's up almost 2% today, up 3 and change, but for a $198 stock, that's not that much of a move, but 2% is pretty good. So we'll take it. On this pullback, it was oversold, right? But again, when you look at technicals setting up with fundamentals, look at our earnings, technicals, and experts are all bullish or better. And again, financials are slightly weak, but that has to do sometimes with valuation more than anything. And in this case, I think that could be the issue. Again, just split 4 for 1. So you've got a situation where a name might have a continuation, some follow through here. And I think that's what's happening with some of the other ones. So let's look at some ones that are lower weighted. Now, NVIDIA is 10% of the SMH, which is pretty amazing. We can look at Texas Instruments, TXN. This one now is, I pull it up, and I also have a neutral plus here. Again, a similar pattern, but more of an upward trajectory when you're looking at the setups, and MACD's kind of turning here, and the RSI 14 has been above the midpoint and getting better, getting stronger. So again, both of these look interesting. Neutral plus, meaning that once this moves above our long-term trend, it's going to be rated bullish again. And that's what we know. That's how our rating works. And so again, a very similar setup, although financials are a little bit stronger and Texas Instruments. The other one is Broadcom, AVGO. And again, another neutral plus with earnings sort of in the neutral, but technicals and experts are bullish or better. Financials slightly weaker. Again, a very similar chart. This one makes up about 5%, and Texas Instruments makes up 5%. So the names I just showed you, Taiwan Semiconductor is 14%, NVIDIA is 10, that's 24%, and then another 10 for the last two. You're talking about over a third of the names are concentrated in 4 stocks in the SMH, okay? So you've got power from not only the group itself, the setup itself, but the names that are making up the most weight in this particular ETF are pushing the index a little bit higher. So when I go to our setup here on Chaikin Analytics, if I type in SMH here, all right, it'll pull up all the information technology ETFs. And there's my top holdings, as I was saying, right? So the top 7 make up almost 48, 49% of all of the weight in this particular one. Now, the other ones like AMD and Intel, Intel's also a neutral positive. We do like the name, but it's really more of in a downtrend. So it's a bullish name that's showing itself into a downtrend. If I pull that up and just look at our charts real quick, right? You're seeing that, but you're seeing negative relative strength here, not really where we want to be. If I look at NVIDIA, again, on our chart, the way we use our system here, I got a much better relative strength with a pullback, sort of sideways action, and I'm getting myself a follow through because not only is this name performing, but so is the entire group. I mean, that's really what we want to be. What do we want? Strong stocks and strong groups, and that's kind of what we look for. So a few other names in this particular one that was looking nice on our particular setup here on Chaikin was JinkoSolar. One of my favorite chart patterns is sort of this breakdown, consolidation, and then a move higher with its first or even second pullback for an opportunity. Now look at the 55-day here, holding very nicely. I'm sorry, should I say the 200, the 20-day is actually holding very nicely. If I pull in the 200, let me pull that in real quick. Okay, we're just getting some support from that particular level as well. So again, my 200 is in the blue, my 50 is in the red, and that 50 did hold, and we're just getting above. Now, we haven't crossed, but on our setup here on Chaikin, take a look real quick. We've got a little bit of a buy signal here. We've got a reversal buy. What that means is the stock has come down, as you saw. It's been oversold. We're getting some positive relative strength, a bullish rating with good money flow, and it's just crossing back above its 21. So that's our reversal buy signal. And even at these levels, it's an interesting setup. You can potentially see some opportunity where this name starts to get above this consolidation area. You might see some resistance here in this level, right? And so, but again, on this setup, what do I have? I've got a bullish name, strong financials, amazing earnings, great technicals, and maybe experts are behind. They're negative at this particular point. Our rating is showing a bullish setup. And so with a bullish setup, with a potential catalyst, again, from the group, potentially from the experts upgrading it, and already we know from a quick glance, we've got strong financials, strong earnings, and strong technicals on this name. This is where you want to be. I mean, these are the kind of names that you're looking at, and you want to find the technicals lining up with the fundamentals. That's the best part about using this particular system in conjunction with technicals. Our whole mantra is marry the two together and put the weight of the evidence on your side when you're trading. That's really what we're trying to do. Last one we'll look at is AMKR, Amkor Tech. Again, a nice setup here. You can almost call this maybe an inverse head and shoulders as well, with a neckline forming right here on a breakout. This could be one of those names that's setting up on the daily chart as well. A little overbought. Can't say it's not. It's up here at the 70 on the RSI. But if you look in the past, it can live up here for a while and remain overbought with some upside. But you may have better opportunity on a pullback. But look at the moving averages have stayed in check for quite some time. They got a little closer together. But look what we have here. We've got a very bullish rating, meaning financials are pinned on the very bullish side. Now you've got earnings set up as well, technicals and experts. So look how experts are already bullish. And if I go back to JKS, I might have a catalyst here if we catch an upgrade sometime in the near future. Okay, so again, we looked at the market, we looked at one sector, and we broke it down and looked at the ones that are heavily weighted in it, and then some other names on the outside of the SMH that are setting up and trying to continue and follow through with the group itself. Thanks, everybody. Great having you here again on this week's version of Halftime with Chaikin Analytics on StockCharts TV. Really appreciate it, and we will see you same time next week. Take care.
Hey, Grayson Rose here with StockCharts. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, consider giving it a like down below, maybe leave us a comment, and if you're new to the channel, you can subscribe at the link up above. We're gonna bring you daily content from an incredible collection of technical analysts and financial experts.